and welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. Hundreds of online government public services, including postal and tax services, are facing massive disruption following a fire at South Korea's national data center. The government says it could take about 2 weeks to fully restore these services. Top diplomats from North Korea and China met in Beijing and agreed to deepen cooperation while vowing to stand against Washington. At least 2 people were killed and 8 were injured in a deadly shooting at a Mormon church in the U.S. state of Michigan. Authorities say a gunman opened fire inside a church during a Sunday service before police shot him. We begin this morning with a fire that broke out at the National Data Infrastructure Center on Friday evening, disrupting key online government services. The government is now working on relocating the damaged systems, but says it could take around 2 weeks to fully restore these services. Our Moon Ji-young starts us off.
Some key online government services are currently unavailable or facing massive delays following a fire at the National Information Resources Service in Daejeon on Friday. The fire started when a lithium-ion battery exploded in a server room in the building. The incident has caused a nationwide paralysis of 647 government administrative and civil services. Of these, 96 were severely damaged. As of midnight Monday, the government announced that it has restored 39 services, including mobile ID services, the healthcare big data system, and crucial post office financial services. The government said it is preparing to relocate these 96 damaged systems to the agency's branch in the southeastern city of Daegu, a process expected to take around 2 weeks. With the Chuseok holiday approaching, there is a high likelihood of delays at public institutions as administrative tasks are expected to surge. During an emergency meeting on Sunday, President Lee Jae-myung apologized for the inconveniences caused, citing the lack of an emergency system.
이번 화재 때문에 국민들께서 큰 불편과 불안을 겪고 있습니다. 국정의 최고 책임자로서 송구하다는 말씀을 먼저 드립니다. 당연히 비용을 들여서라도 대책을 세웠어야 되는데 예측 가능한 일이 실제로 벌어졌고 대비책은 없었다는 것입니다.
President Lee further emphasized the need for a thorough investigation, noting that a similar disruption occurred 2 years ago and criticizing the lack of a dual operating system. He called for around-the-clock efforts to swiftly restore key public systems and resume their operations to prevent further public inconvenience in daily life services. Moon Ji-young, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, in China, the country's Foreign Minister Wang Yi met with his North Korean counterpart Choi Sun-hee in Beijing on Sunday, where the two pledged to deepen exchanges and cooperation while delivering a pointed message towards Washington. According to China's foreign ministry, Wang reaffirmed that strengthening ties with Pyongyang is a firm strategic policy of Beijing's. He also called for closer communication to promote peace and development in the region. In response, Choi said Pyongyang will work with Beijing to strengthen strategic communication, expand exchanges, and deepen cooperation. Wang also criticized power politics and bullying by the United States and praised North Korea's support for China's core interests and President Xi Jinping's global initiatives. A deadly attack at a Mormon church in Michigan has left at least 2 people dead along with the suspect. President Donald Trump condemned the shooting, calling it a targeted attack on Christians. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
A deadly attack on a church in Michigan has left at least 2 people dead and several others wounded. Police say a 40-year-old man drove his pickup truck through the front doors of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Grand Blanc Township on Sunday, while hundreds of worshipers were gathered inside for services. After crashing into the building, the man opened fire on the congregation before allegedly setting the church ablaze. The suspect has been identified as a 40-year-old Thomas Jacob Sanford.
That suspect is a 40-year-old male from the city of Burton who we identified as Thomas Jacob Sanford. Currently where we're at, an update, I gave you 10 victims who were victims of gunshot. Since then, we have 2 victims who are now deceased. One additional one had died at a local hospital. And again, that suspect is deceased as well.
Following the attack, the suspect fled the church, chased by 2 police officers. The suspect was then fatally shot in an exchange of gunfire with the police. A motive has not yet been determined, and it is unclear whether he had any connection to the church. President Donald Trump, in a post on Truth Social, called the shooting a targeted attack on Christians. He said he had been briefed on the incident and urged an end to what he described as the epidemic of violence across the United States. The Michigan church attack comes on the heels of several high-profile shootings in the U.S. This includes a shooting in Minnesota where a gunman opened fire at a Catholic church during the first morning mass of the school year as children gathered. 이승재, Arirang News.
And now on the economic front, Seoul and Washington have been working to reach an agreement on tariffs, but the talks are deadlocked over key details of the $350 billion U.S. investment that Seoul pledged in July as part of a broader trade deal. For more on this, we're joined today by Professor Kim Young-jin, professor at Seogang Business School. Professor Kim, thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
So, U.S. President Donald Trump recently said the $350 billion investment is an upfront payment and compared it to a deal made with Japan. And top officials here and analysts say it's impossible for Korea to pay this amount all at once in cash, as Trump suggests. So, what would be the most effective way to resolve the situation?
Well, as you mentioned, the U.S. President Trump asked, Korean government to give $350 billion to the U.S. upfront and indirect total control of the fund. Sounds like absurd, right? If Korea does it as Mr. President asked, it will face a serious hard currency problem, which is rightly expected by many experts. When it comes to the upfront investment and the control right of the fund, I don't think there would be a good solution for this issue because the interests of the two parties are totally different. However, there might be a solution if the U.S. moves different ways from the resolution with Japan. What I mean is that the issue will be resolved only when the U.S. government either allows the unlimited currency swap between Korean won and the U.S. dollar, or accept the Korean plan that consists of loan and loan guarantees with equity investment in the investment package. If Korean government decide to give subsidies to the damaged exporters by the Trump tariff rather than invest $350 billion in the United States for, let's say, 10 years, there is nothing much the U.S. can do and to gain. In this case, they may want to increase the tariff more. However, the price increase in the exported goods will be transferred to the U.S. consumers, which most likely will not be accepted by the U.S. consumer.
Right, and Trump administration is trying to impose more tariffs because starting October 1st, Trump also said the United States will put higher tariffs on imported drugs, trucks, and kitchen cabinets. How are these new tariffs expected to affect Korean businesses?
Well, the policy that imposes huge tariff on those items, will be good for manufacturers, but really bad for their consumers, right? And Korean companies won't be affected that much. That's my hunch. The key items Korean companies export to the U.S. include automobiles, semiconductors, steel, petrochemicals, lesser degree food and cosmetics. The tariff will affect the companies in the UK and EU, including Sweden for furnitures, and Mexico and Canada for trucks. Even in the case of pharmaceuticals, the generic drugs will be exempted, and the companies which build or are going to build factories in the United States won't be affected. In some, the additional tariff on the items won't affect the trade that much around the world and also in Korea.
I see. Speaking of automobiles, as you just mentioned, auto tariffs also remain a key issue. So Japanese and European cars face a 15% tariff in the United States, whereas Korean cars still face 25%. How should Seoul work on negotiations to minimize this impact on Korean car makers?
Well, so absolutely, that's really bad. While Japanese and European car makers, pay 15% tariff, but Korean car makers have to pay 25% of tariff. That's really bad, and a competitive advantage in terms of price-wise, Korean companies are in bad side. But it is not simply the issue of car makers who are tariff on cars. We need to look at it from a little bit larger perspective or view. The deal might be deeply related to the resolution of how the $350 billion investment would be managed and would be cleared. When the two allies, U.S., Korea, could reach an agreement with a reasonable plan for it, then subsequently the negotiations on the tariff on imported cars and the part from Korea will be finalized. So I think now at the moment we have to take a look and let's see what will be happening. Probably before the APEC meeting, we might have some solutions.
I see, but what's making it worse is that the Korean won hit its lowest level in 4 months against the U.S. dollar. Do you expect this trend to continue, and how might this affect trade negotiations in the future?
Well, the volatility will be kept, for a while, before the Korea and U.S., reach the agreement about the $350 billion, investment. So basically, at the moment, lots of experts and practitioners are concerned and worried about the request for the upfront of the President Trump. Basically, our foreign reserve, Korean foreign reserve is only like 410 billion US dollars. If out of $410 billion, if you just give $350 billion to the US, absolutely 100% will meet or will face the hard currency crisis again. So that absolutely worrisome condition. But so that the volatility in the foreign exchange market for Korean won and US dollars will be held for a while, but I think it will be settled down before the APEC meetings.
I see. I guess we'll have to see how that goes. All right, Professor Kim, thank you so much for your insight this morning. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Over the weekend, South Korea's Navy celebrated the 80th anniversary of its founding with a fleet review in waters off the coast of Busan. Our defense correspondent Kim Bo-kyung was there.
With the commander of the Navy's latest Aegis destroyer, the ROK's Jeongjo the Great, reporting the commencement of the maritime fleet review to the defense minister, the Navy's fleet review began. Celebrating the 80th anniversary of the Navy's founding, this year's fleet review was the 6th in the Navy's history, with the first coming in 1945. I'm currently on the deck of the Navy's 4,900-ton amphibious landing ship Ilchubong, where defense officials, including the minister, are on board for the fleet review, showcasing the country's naval strength both at sea and in the air. Along with ROK's Ilchubong were 14,500-ton large transport ship Marado, which recently took part in the U.S. and Australia-led Talisman Sabre drills as a lead ship, and the landing ship Dojokbong, which had around 2,000 members of the public on board. A series of warships and aircraft, including the latest MH-60R maritime operation helicopters and the Aegis destroyers Haejong the Great, also featured, along with submarines. With the Navy showing off its capabilities, South Korea's defense chief underlined the importance of maritime security.
Maritime security is directly linked to the nation's survival, since 99.7% of our country's trade is conducted by sea. Maritime routes are essentially the lifeline of the nation.
The fleet review included an anti-submarine operation where P-8A maritime patrol aircraft, MH-60R and Lynx helicopters detected and tracked an enemy submarine before releasing a training torpedo. A demonstration of the Navy's firepower followed, involving both manned and unmanned assets responding to enemy vessels. People who got a chance to see the event enjoyed every minute of it.
Seeing the Navy's capabilities in person made me realize how strong our national defense is. I feel confident that we can trust and rely on our Navy to protect our country.
Showcasing its vision of becoming a leading maritime power, the ROK Navy was able to demonstrate its strength and get closer to the public. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News, Busan.
In other news, South Korea's southern city of Jeonju is hosting the first ever Dronesoccer World Cup. The event, which kicked off on Thursday, has drawn thousands of participants from more than 30 countries. Our culture correspondent Park Gon-woo covers some of the action taking place in the air.
After the referee blows the whistle, 5 players on each team start to fly for their fierce battle. Unlike regular soccer matches, it's not athletes running on grass. It's these spear-shaped flying machines buzzing through the air. This drone soccer ball looks just like any other sports ball, but once you switch it on, it's now ready to take off and fly into the ring that's set way above the ground. Controlled by each pilot, the drones each have their own roles. Those in attacking position aim to shoot, and those in defense block the rings. During the game, collisions are fierce, with drones crashing to the ground. But just like human players shaking off an injury, they quickly rise again and rejoin the game. Matches that are tied even go to penalty shootouts, where one drone has just 5 seconds to score as many as it can, while another drone blocks the ring. These intense competitions took place at the world's first Dronesoccer World Cup in Jeonju over 4 days through the weekend. Around 1,600 participants from 33 countries across 6 continents took part.
Drone is getting so popular in over the world, and then I looked into the whole game. It's a new sport, and it's really innovation, and it's so exciting.
Korean techniques are the highest level of all the world, so we came here to learn about how they play in teams, and also what material they use, because it's important how the drone is assembled.
As the birthplace of drone soccer, Korea has been dominating many of the matches, and some pilots share what's required to be a great player.
Piloting skills are the fundamentals, so I practice 4 to 5 hours a day. But as a team, communication is just as important, so we constantly shout instructions, who's attacking, who's defending during the game.
As the World Cup shows how far drone technologies has flown, drone soccer may be the next game to really soar as it takes flight from Korea to the world. Park Gon-woo, Arirang News, Jeonju.
Good morning, I'm Choi Ji-hee, and this is The World Now. Iran has strongly condemned the reimposition of United Nations sanctions over its nuclear program, calling them unlawful and saying they undermined diplomatic efforts. On Sunday, Iran's foreign ministry denounced the reinstatement of UN sanctions on Iran 10 years after they were lifted, labeling them unjustifiable, illegal, and a violation of international law. Iran claims the move is politically motivated and refuses to recognize the legitimacy of the snapback process. That process was initiated by the UK, France, and Germany, who cited lack of cooperation from Tehran. The snapback process automatically reimposes all UN sanctions on Iran over its nuclear program, including arms embargoes, halting uranium enrichment support, and asset freezes targeted at individuals and entities tied to Iran's nuclear and missile programs. Over in Europe, Denmark has imposed a week-long ban on civilian drone flights following fresh drone sightings at military bases over the weekend, just as Copenhagen prepares to host a high-level EU summit. The Danish government announced on Sunday that civilian drones will be banned nationwide from Monday to Friday during the week of the EU summit, citing security concerns after drones were observed over several military bases over the weekend and civilian airports last week. NATO also announced it would deploy an air defense frigate in the Baltic Sea in response to last week's drone incidents. The Danish Transportation Ministry stated that the temporary ban on all civilian drones flying in Danish airspace aims to remove the risk that enemy drones can be confused with legal drones. It warned that violations may result in fines or imprisonment for up to 2 years. Denmark will hold the rotating EU presidency, and the summit of leaders and officials is scheduled for Wednesday and Thursday. In India, at least 39 people, including children, were killed and dozens were injured on Saturday evening in a crowd crush at a political rally in Karur, Tamil Nadu state. The rally was hosted by actor-turned-politician Vijay as part of his 2026 state elections campaign. According to reports, more than double the 10,000 people permitted for the rally had gathered when the crowd surged forward suddenly during Vijay's address. Vijay expressed heartbreak over the tragedy, and the Tamil Nadu government announced compensation for the families of the deceased. Finally, American pop star Selena Gomez has married music producer Benny Blanco, confirming the union in a social media post. Blanco responded to her post, writing, "My wife in real life." The wedding ceremony, an intimate gathering of close friends and industry peers, was held outdoors in Santa Barbara, California. Celebrity guests in attendance included Taylor Swift, who reportedly gave a speech. Gomez wore a white halter dress with floral details, while Blanco donned a tuxedo and bow tie, both custom-made by Ralph Lauren. Gomez, 33, and Blanco, 37, met about a decade ago and got engaged at the end of last year.
As September draws to a close, it's a perfect day to feel the deepening of autumn. We had a cooler start than yesterday, and temperatures will rise throughout the day to around 25 degrees, so there is a gap in readings, but the air should feel very comfortable. Skies across the country will be partly cloudy today, with a chance of passing showers in some of the central east regions. And this afternoon, highs will be 1 to 5 degrees higher, topping out at 25 in Seoul, Daejeon, Gwangju, warmer over in Busan at 27 degrees. Rain is also in the forecast for the southern regions later this week as the holiday weekend begins. The rest of the country will stay mostly sunny, but be aware that the daily temperature gaps will remain wide. So do dress accordingly. You don't want to get sick before the long holiday.
That's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time. Thanks for watching.